My name is Daniel Molto and I'm a journalist in Diario El Mundo in Alicante.
Our first question is, why did you decide to become a journalist?
Well, since I was a kid, I was quite curious about things and I'd like to communicate. I always also liked television and radio, reading. I read newspapers, I read books, and basically because I like to communicate. And then I think that's the most important thing that a journalist has to have, like a passion for communicate to people.
Did you ever thought of studying other things?
Well, the thing is that my first choice was not journalism. I studied English, and then when I was in the fourth course of English at the university, I began studying communication. And finally, I have a degree in communication and a degree in journalism. So both studies I liked.
Where did you study the journalism degree?
I studied my degree in Valencia at the University of Valencia.
What was your first job as a journalist?
My first job as a journalist was at a tiny magazine. It was a cultural magazine, and I spent there like 2 years. Then I moved to a radio station, and I worked for the radio station for 6 years. And I've also worked for a news agency and for a newspaper, for El Mundo.
So how has journalism changed your life?
I wouldn't say it has changed my life, but I would say it has become my life. For instance, today I was not working, I was off, but this morning I began reading the newspaper and tweeting things and analyzing different news in different newspapers. So when you're a journalist, I think you always are trying to analyze the news and thinking of possible things that interest people to tell.
What inspired you to write?
There are different things that inspire me to write. I usually write about health, education, and social issues like poverty or solidarity. So there can be many different things. Maybe you can read a story in the newspaper and then you have to try to think what's behind that story. For instance, if you are talking about the economic crisis, maybe economy is not something that interests me a lot, but I can look for the story that is behind that crisis. That is the people that are hungry because they don't have anything to eat, or people that are being sacked from their homes. So there are different things that can inspire me. Maybe reading a magazine you can see a picture or a news and then think, it would be interesting to write about this topic. So many different things.
Do you need to travel?
Well, not really. My newsroom is based in Alicante, but I've had the opportunity to travel to 3 different places to cover stories abroad. I went to Japan, I went to Prague, and I went to Rome, and also went to Barcelona and Madrid. So these are opportunities to travel, but not really always.
And which one was the most different place?
For me,
Japan?
For me, Japan, it's very different from us, and it was very interesting to see how they do different things. For instance, the taxi driver had these globes, white globes with him, and everything was covered in white inside the car, so that's very different. All the noises you hear, all the lights in the city, and the way they communicate to each other, they are very polite, and they're always bowing to you and saying nice things to you. So it's a different way to communicate, and it's a different society. So it's very interesting.
How many languages do you know?
I speak Spanish and I speak Valencian, that is my mother tongue. And then I can speak English, I can speak German, not so well as English. And I can also speak a little bit of Italian because I've got Italian friends and I spent a time in Italy. And I understand French, but I don't speak French.
Which one is the most you like?
I like English a lot because I wanted to be an English teacher and I studied English. And I also try to speak English as much as I can, going to different meetings to speak English and studying, watching TV series or films in English, reading novels in English. So whenever I can, I try to improve my level of English.
In journalism, do you think that honesty is an important factor?
I think, in fact, honesty is the most important thing in journalism. It's not always easy, but you have to be honest and you have to try to tell things as accurate as you can. Maybe sometimes it's impossible to know everything about a fact, but you have to have different sources and different people that tell you different sides of the story, so you can be able to tell your reader or the people you are going to approach the things as you imagine that they are more accurate to reality. You have to be honest and you have to be a good person to be a good journalist.
Do you really think that people have to believe every single word that journalists say?
Maybe not every single word. I would like people to trust journalists. Maybe that's impossible, 100%. I think what people have to do is to try to get the news from different sources, also from different newspapers, maybe, and then compare them. And if you are able to go to an independent source as well, that maybe would be the complete picture. And maybe you can see different parts of the same topic. And finally, you have to decide if you trust journalists or you don't trust them.
Do you think that each newspaper says change the information?
There are interests in newspapers. The people I know, the people around me, I think they are quite honest journalists. But yeah, it's true that the big newspapers can have interests, and depending on that interest, they can change or they can show a side or hide it from reality. So yeah, maybe they can change little things, but at the end, the truth always comes out.
What do you need to catch the people's attention?
I think first of all, you need a good story. You need something that interests people. And then you have to write it properly. If you are a writer, you have to write it properly. You have to have good writing skills. If you are a TV presenter, you have to have good communication skills. And then in this era of internet, I think it's very important to combine different media. So writing and also image, like photographs and video are important, as well as a good headline. Because people are surfing through the internet and they are like scanning different information. So you have to be quick and you have to be accurate to catch their attention, and with a good headline and a good picture, and then beside that a good story, you catch people's attention.
Do you like your actual job?
I like it. Sometimes it can be boring, as any other job, and some days it's very interesting, but I like it. Most of it I like it. Yes.
Would you mind explaining us your day at work?
I'm responsible for the website of the newspaper, so the first thing I do in the morning is to upload all the news in the newspaper to the website. Then I have to be reading different news from news agencies, and when I see something that can be interesting, I have to put it on the website. And I also phone to the people I know from different fields, from education or from health, to ask them if there is something I can write about. And then you have to prepare a topic or a piece of news that you're going to sell to your editor. So after lunch we have a meeting and I explain, well, today I was working on this story I would like to write about, and then my editor says, well, I like it or I don't like it, or maybe you can approach this news this way. And finally I have to write it and let it prepare for the next day.
So you start your day really early?
Yeah, I start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's a thing of journalism that maybe people don't know, and is that journalism can be very thrilling and very interesting, but most days is a boring job as any other, and there are long hours. You spend a lot of time in the newsroom, so I can finish at 8, 9, 10 in the evening.
Can you imagine your life without the journalism?
I actually can, because I like other things apart from journalism. I guess if I weren't a journalist, I would be a teacher, because I like it as well as journalism. But I'm okay with my life nowadays, because I think journalism is a good opportunity to get in touch with people, with different people, and I really enjoy it.
So the last question is, what would you like to do in your life after this adventure?
I would like to keep my job, because nowadays it's quite difficult for journalists to work, and if I can, being a journalist is a nice thing. If you can interview interesting people or writing about things that I like or that I think they are important for people to know. So just work.
Thank you. And